Tonight on Let It Rip.
Gretchen Whitmer's Michigan. Soft on criminals.
The race for governor is heating up, and this anti-Whitmer ad was just released. But do negative ads actually work? Do people really change their opinions based on them? We talked to a political pundit and a communications expert about how much of the mud actually sticks when it's all said and done. But first,
we are the United States of America. And there's literally, I mean this sincerely, there's not a damn thing we can't do.
We're going to win 4 more years in the White House.
High hopes for both former President Trump and President Biden. They want to be elected again, but a new poll finds both Republicans and Democrats have a large swath of voters that want someone else to run. As we ask the question, is this the best we have? Our political experts weigh in tonight. And so time to let it rip. Hello, everyone. Good to be with you. 2 men in their 70s battling it out for the country's top job. But a new poll shows that many Americans may not like the two choices they're left with if Trump and Biden go toe-to-toe. Look at these numbers. Just 35% of Democrats and Democrat-leaning independents want Biden to be their guy. 46% of Republicans and GOP-leading independents want Trump. So are there better choices, and if so, who? Joining us now, Abdul El-Sayed, a man who ran for governor of Michigan in 2018. The Democrat, former public health professor and doctor, joins us now. Also with us, Rocky Raczkowski, the chair of the Oakland County Republican Party, and attorney and anchor Charlie Langton, a magician who cheats time and manages to be everywhere all the time. Charlie's an anchor, reporter, and legal analyst. So let's let it rip. We begin with these numbers. Rocky, I'll begin with you. In the GOP right now, out of more than 1,000 people polled this past Sunday, 47% of the people polled said, hey, I want Trump to be the candidate. 46%, I want someone else. Does that surprise you?
It does a little bit, because President Trump has done more for our nation than most any Republican president. Plus, he was the first Republican to actually counterpunch against the media. He was the first one that actually brought a different view to the Republican Party and made us more of populist conservatives, which we actually should be.
But what about
a party that put
numbers?
America first, and that's truly why more Americans should support the Trump policies and the America First policies. I supported the America First policies because it put more Americans to work, brought gas down to its lowest prices, and we saw inflation at its lowest levels ever. And now the converse is different.
Why then 46% of the people who were polled in this, who are registered voters, who are Republicans, said, I want someone else? Do you think they think that Trump is damaged goods?
No, I think what they're looking at is the fact that they loved his policies, maybe didn't like his tweets, the fact of age, as you brought up, the fact of the age, and also the fact that he would only be a one-termer. We're looking for somebody that can lead our country for 8 years as a two-term president.
Abdul, you want to chime in?
Roop, we got a hostage situation over here. I mean, you hear this from Republicans all the time. Dude tried to steal an election. And he continues every single day to talk only about this idea that somehow he had it stolen. Now he's talking about declassifying things in his mind, like he's doing the, remember I Dream of Jeannie thing, right? He could just
I think you're taking
blink his eyes, blink his eyes, he can go ahead and take whatever he wants to Mar-a-Lago. Look, this is somebody who's being investigated 3 different ways. Phony
investigation.
Sure, I'm sure you call them that, and I'm sure you call it a phony election too. The truth of the matter is, we in America believe in a certain set of institutions, and having a president who defends those institutions at the very least is probably an important thing. And yet, 47% of the party still wants to stick with a man who does not believe in our democracy.
From institution to constitution of mind. This president who we have in office right now has been insulated from much of the media, has done very few media interviews, and many people say may not be completely ready for this race. If he ends up running and winning, he would be 82 years old in 2024. Is this the best guy that the Democrats have?
Look, at the end of the day, you showed those numbers. I think a lot of Democrats are asking, what is the future of the party? The reality of this, though, is that we also have to look at what he's accomplished in office. This is somebody who passed the first bipartisan, remember Infrastructure Week? Y'all remember that? We had it every single week of the Trump presidency. Passed the first bipartisan infrastructure law that is now going to actually fix things. We have the CHIPS and Science Bill. We have the Inflation Reduction Act that actually is doing something about the existential challenge of climate change, which, by the way, people in Florida, right, are thinking a lot about the kinds of hurricanes and what that means for them. So, yes, there's a lot that has been accomplished under this president, by the way, in the context of a pandemic that was not addressed under the guy that seems to be holding Rocky hostage.
Hold on one second, though. Let me ask you, Charlie, let's get to you for a minute. I want to just point to this number here.
Yeah.
How then are 56% of Democrats who were polled just a few days ago saying, I don't want this guy in office if he's done all those great things.
Because of all the things we just mentioned. Listen, it's first of all, I guess the issue that I would have is who is the alternative and who's going to stand up. Nobody's going to challenge Joe Biden if you're a Democrat. It's not going to happen. So if Joe Biden wants to run again, he's going to run again.
I disagree with you, Charlie.
Period. Trump, from what I'm hearing, nobody's going to challenge Trump. Now, they may challenge Trump, but he's going to win. By every poll that I've looked at, Trump is the #1 Republican. So you got to have an alternative, or there's going to be a major, major fight. But I don't think there's going to be. I think it's going to be Trump and Biden, unless there's some bizarre thing. When was the last time an incumbent president said, I don't want to run again? An incumbent president. Was it Johnson? Way back when?
That's right.
Okay. Way back when.
What about the Pence factor?
Yeah, but it's a little bit different because in this situation, and by the way, you know, Roop, you mentioned all these great things that he's done. All those great things are not really great things. Look at how we're spending money on gas. Look at the Inflation Reduction Act. Even
Do you
out of
think
the mouth
Trump
of
is going to beat Biden?
out of the mouth of babes, the doc said one very important thing. He said it helped climate change. It's going to change climate change. But we called it Inflation Reduction Act. It didn't change inflation. It's going to raise inflation. It's doing nothing for it.
Rocky, I got to ask you one question.
Yeah.
There are many Republicans out there, and I don't know the number, I don't know the poll numbers on this, but people in my circle who I know, who I talk to, viewers who say after the insurrection, I will not vote for President Trump.
True.
The assault on the Capitol was too much.
True.
I can't vote for this guy anymore. What are the alternatives for people like that?
Who
are the alternatives?
Look, on the Republican, we have a deep bench. We've got Ron DeSantis. We've got Mike Pompeo. We've got Mike Pence. We've got multiple. We've got Kristi Noem and all types of governors. We've got governors. We've got U.S. senators. Look at Josh Hawley. We've got younger people in our bench that are ready to lead our country with America First initiatives.
But if the people who love Trump, are they going to like Pence? After everything that happened?
Well,
I remember them saying, hang Mike Pence.
You know what? You're not a
January
Republican,
6th.
So please don't answer this question.
Yes, but I am an American. That seems to matter.
I'm actually more an American.
Oh, you're more an American?
I'll tell you why.
Explain why.
I'll tell you why. Because I don't put my party first. I'm tired of both Democrats and Republicans.
Except you just sat here talking about Trump?
Yeah.
Well, that's called party first.
America first.
Did he?
He put America first.
By challenging our entire democracy?
No, you know what?
Oh, come on,
Stop
Rocky.
the political garbage. He put America first. He made sure that people went back to work. He made sure that we onshored back businesses, and he secured the southern border.
Biden does have some problems, though. I agree.
Dying of fentanyl.
Biden has some problems. Our mortgage rates are up. There's a lot of things.
Yeah,
Inflation is around. Listen, there's a lot of issues here that a lot of people will relate to Joe Biden. And so maybe neither one of these guys should run.
Trump
but they're going to run.
took a few steps slower walking down the steps at West Point, and suddenly you heard talk about the 25th Amendment. This guy's made mistake and mistake upon mistake. Ron claims running the government. He's an unelected chief of staff of the White House. Biden is not running.
Theories.
Rocky, I want to give up Jewel a chance to answer this question.
You don't hear the 25th Amendment is because of Kamala Harris.
Rocky, we talked about the alternatives in the Republican Party, the alternatives in the Democratic Party. Let's just rewind to 2020 for a moment, Abdul. It seems as though the DNC kind of chose their golden guy as Joe Biden. There was nothing, it seemed, that anyone could do to try to unseat that decision. Bernie Sanders. He had a lot of people loving him. I mean, the numbers were great. He had great poll numbers. Elizabeth Warren, Mike Bloomberg, Klobuchar, Buttigieg. Why is it that the Democratic Party can't get behind somebody else so that the 56% of the people who say, I don't want Joe Biden, can have an alternative?
Well, I'll tell you this. The nice thing about the Democratic primary process is it's not first past the post. And just to explain what that means, it means that we actually look at proportional voting and we look at how much we attribute in terms of the number of delegates that are appointed to a given individual. And so we actually have a far more democratic process than winner takes all as they have in the Republican side, which has delivered Donald Trump twice. But to the point that you're asking, right? There are many different people who could potentially run in 2024. But the president is an incumbent, right? And he has accomplished a whole bunch of things. I'm just saying that if he runs again, I will support him, no doubt about that.
But
right? But that's his choice to make.
Do you wish that there was there was a more viable alternative?
I mean, you all know I supported Bernie Sanders in the primary, right? And there are issues that we had disagreements on in the primary. But when President Biden won the nomination, the party got behind him, and you know what he did? He won an election. And here's the problem. Donald Trump still can't see that winning an election is what makes you president of the United States.
You heard the same thing from Democrats, and even having hearings about the fact that the 2016 election was stolen from
But you actually know what happened in 2016. Hillary Clinton conceded the election.
Do you want Donald Trump to run today?
If he runs, I'll
but
support
do you want
him.
him to run?
To what? Do you want him to be the guy?
I want everybody to run and let the
No,
voters
you're not answering the
decide.
question.
No,
Do you
because
want him to run?
I want everybody to run. Do I want him to run? Sure. I want America First policies. I want Ron DeSantis to run. I want Mike Pompeo to run.
Hey, let me ask you a
That's
question that takes a step away from the political world and takes a step into the demographic world for a moment. We have people who are voting for the first time, as is the case every year, of course, every time there's an election. We have an 82-year-old who will be 82 when he runs, and a 78-year-old. What is going on in this country where, in this nation, in America, are there no viable candidates in their 40s and 50s?
If I may, actually, I do want to
that?
speak to this. I do think that we have a real challenge across our election system where money matters way too much, particularly corporate money matters way too much, and the ability for someone who has won a campaign to consolidate power and to stay in power has left us with a gerontocracy. That is across the board. And we do need younger voices in our party. And I'll tell you this, the younger voices in America would never, ever consider voting for your party, let alone if it's DeSantis or it's Trump. And part of the reason why is because we actually need our institutions to work, right? And that's the real problem here. Is the institutions are not working for people.
You don't have a
Again,
crystal ball, but do you
of-
think DeSantis is a viable
He's a
candidate?
very viable candidate, but so is Trump, so is Pence, so is Pompeo, so is Kristi Noem. But again, when you talk about the Democratic Party so eloquently, you make it sound like it's this utopia, and it's not. The
It's not a
Democratic
utopia.
Party, by the way, controls who they vote for with superdelegates. They tell people where to vote and how to vote, and they control their delegates with money, and they cut people off if you don't vote their way.
I mean, we want to talk
the
about money,
Republican Party,
right?
I'll agree with the doctor on one very important thing, and that is that we need to get money out of politics.
Well, that's
Get
going to.
money out of
How
politics.
long is that going to take? I mean, this has been run on
Well,
cash. for
hey,
how long?
I think we agree on that.
We do agree on that, right? We do agree on that.
So Trump's in town this Saturday.
Yes.
Are you going to see him?
Yes.
Are you going to talk to him?
Hopefully, yeah.
What are you going to tell him that people in Michigan care about right now?
Stop
We care about the inflation. We care about inflation. We care about gas prices. We care about the facts that many people, everybody knows someone or someone's child that died of fentanyl. And we need someone to come back and push those America First policies.
I think Democrats want Trump to run more than Republicans do. I think he's going to divide the
They're
whole
scared
party.
of him. That's why they're
afraid
launching
of
all
Trump.
these
I think
trials.
that's true.
No, I would love to see him declare right now.
There
you know
you
why?
go.
Because
There
we
you
would
go.
win both the House and the Senate.
Exhibit
because
A.
I don't
the
think
single
so.
most polarizing person in American politics.
He's coming to town right now to basically throw his weight behind Karamo, DePerno, and Dixon. How important is that? And do you think that voters are going to sit back and say, yeah, because he came into town, I'm going to go vote for these?
So the hard part about this, and I really do hope that Rocky sees this, is that the Republican Party is held hostage to its own base. And so you've got folks like DePerno and Karamo who are literally campaigning on conspiracy theories that make zero sense to most people talking about the
you're
issues that
taking
you
things
keep
way
talking
out of
about. No,
context.
wait a
That's just
second.
not true.
You're
The
telling me,
commercials that are out there about
Rocky,
DePerno
I was asked the
and
question.
Karamo are BS.
Rocky, I was asked the question.
And we only have about 20 seconds left.
The issue here is that you all like to point to gas prices and inflation while talking about stolen elections.
Real issues that people care about.
But the real issues that people care about, the president is actually doing something about. So
he's
you
doing
really need
absolutely nothing.
you really need
How
some
are you
policy.
doing?
that
Are
you're
you
going to
doing
push
better
back.
now than you were 2 years ago? Ask
Abdul,
yourself that
Rocky,
question.
Charlie, thank you.
you.
Thank you very much for taking part in this discussion and keeping it civil, yet fiercely disagreeing. Next on Let It Rip, how much is it too much when it comes to negative ads? The race for governor, AG, and Secretary of State are just some of the races that are getting downright dirty. Do voters actually respond to the mudslinging? We dig into that with another set of experts after this. Welcome back to Let It Rip. You know, you've seen the ads on all the stations in town. Lots of fire coming from both sides. The question is, as a voter sitting on your sofa right now, are you swayed at all by the shots fired between the blue and the red? Joining Charlie and me on the set here, David Dulio, political science professor at Oakland University, and communication specialist and PR guru Matt Friedman with Tanner Friedman. Good to see you. Let's dig into this right away. I just saw the ad today, you know, Proposal 3. There was an anti-Proposal 3 ad in which they have actors, seemingly what look like actors, acting confused about Proposal 3. And it got us thinking, does this stuff really work, Matt, when it comes to these ads? Are people at home going, yeah, that is confusing. I agree with this ad. How does it work?
You know, I don't know how it works in politics exactly, but I can tell you that in business, when we talk about building reputation and building brand for a company, or even for a person who's a front person for a company, we talk about authenticity and trust. So when you tell me about commercials where the people are obviously actors in a state of 10 million real people, That sounds like phony baloney, and I don't know how anybody is going to be swayed by that. Maybe it affects them somehow, but I don't know how that's convincing. It's something we would never do in business.
Well, David Duilio, when you take a look at this as a political guy, as someone who studies this stuff, what would be more effective than pretending to be confused about an issue? Would it be to just be clear and say this is why you shouldn't vote on something?
Well, I think the word of the night so far is authenticity, right? And I think that that's what this particular ad is lacking. But to your global question about does it work? Absolutely, it works. It is the political consultants, the media consultants, they wouldn't do it if it didn't work. So, we're going to see tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars spent in Michigan over the next 6 weeks on these ads, and they wouldn't be spent, those dollars wouldn't be spent if they didn't work.
Charlie Langton, when you look at some of these ads and then you go talk to the people who are walking around in Metro Detroit, is there a disconnect there?
No, they love these negative ads. They work. Remember the sleeping judge one time on the Supreme Cliff Taylor? He's a sleeping judge. Somebody caught him sleeping, and they ran that ad, and of course the guy lost. What about, they brand Tricky Dick? What about Crooked Hillary? I mean, I could go on and on. There's a whole bunch of them. And now there's the abortion ads right now, the pro-choice, pro-life. They're going wild on this stuff. But the bottom line here is that, yes, it also gets the public upset, I think. And I think when the public is upset, they do go out and vote. Because they're saying, wait a minute, this is so phony, I'm going to vote for the other guy. There may be a negative effect, but the bottom line is it does get the electorate somewhat interested and make them vote.
Well, go ahead, Dave.
Well, and Charlie, we need to get you into our poli-sci classes at Oakland University because you just described the empirical evidence of political science on these on the question of ads really well. People remember quote unquote negative ads more. People are often motivated to vote by negative ads more. We often see in the negative ads get thrown into the most competitive races, which is where we see the highest turnout. It's an energizing force to some degree.
And you know what, real quick, but I'm seeing the negative stuff now in fundraising. So I get fundraising. They hit me up for money for the Democrats, Republicans, it doesn't matter. But Nancy Pelosi will say, if you don't send money right this moment, Trump is going to take over the world. Oh my God! And then the Trump people are saying, Nancy Pelosi is so bad. It's negative, but they're doing it now in the fundraising arena. So it's not just on television or radio or whatever. It's raising money, and I guess it works.
Well, Charlie, David, Matt, if these negative ads really do work, you take a look at what Governor Whitmer is doing right now, and she's coming out swinging on a positive front. Every one of her ads has feel-good music. The scenery is pleasant. The lights are bright. And it's talking about a brighter future. Matt, when you see that, does that work?
I think that's more in line with a business-like approach. But I'll tell you something about the negativity that we know from working with the media business. Political negativity is a multi-billion-dollar business in this country. And it's not just during election season. It's 365 nights a year on cable TV. Really, the energy that you get from a negative political ad is the same energy that you get from watching a cable news channel talk about politics night after night after night. So I think we're talking about something embedded in the culture. What the governor's trying to do with a positive ad is put a positive light on the current situation in Michigan and cut against the grain a little bit culturally to attract that person who maybe doesn't like politics but is afraid of change.
But who are these ads really centered at? Because if you really look at an ardent Democrat, they're voting for Whitmer. If you look at an ardent Republican, they're voting for Tudor Dixon. I don't know any Republican out there who's like, oh, I'm a real big Republican, I'm going to vote for Whitmer. David, who are these aimed at? The undecideds, right?
Well, ads are aimed at a couple different groups. One is persuadable voters, right? So that's where you see, I think, the biggest effects with negative ads would come, right? Where people are persuaded to vote for one candidate or the other, or in the Prop 3 case, to vote for or against it. Ads can also be about turning out the base, right, and energizing supporters. So when Governor Whitmer comes on and is talking about her accomplishments, right, that might be aimed at some folks who, some Democrats who aren't ardent Democrats, but maybe soft Democrats who need to be reminded of maybe why they voted for the governor in the first place 4 years ago. I also think those positive spots that she's running reflect the current context of the race. Frankly, she can afford to do some positive advertising. She's ahead.
She's the incumbent.
She's the incumbent. Plus, she's got some third-party groups that are coming in and spending on her behalf or spending in support of her campaign that are really doing the dirty work for her.
That's the
Political
key.
action
That's
committees,
the
right?
Key. You got it happens, but it's rare that the candidate is the one saying, "My opponent is so bad, and I approve this ad." That doesn't usually happen. It's the concerned citizen society, is what Dave's talking about.
Yeah.
The professor is right. It's not going to be the candidate, and then when you have a whole bunch of third-party people doing this, yes, be nice. I'm the nice guy. But again, you run a little bit of the fakeness there too. I think the candidates do know that your friends are running the negative ads.
Well,
and
sure.
So they should be asked those questions.
And it's
Do you approve
worse.
of that?
It's worse when they come out and say, "I don't know anything about these advertisements."
I don't know who these people are.
That's not my campaign, right? That seems a little disingenuous.
We don't have any debates anymore. There are no debates anymore. These candidates rarely. How many do we have?
Well, we have two. We have the governor doing one in Grand Rapids, one in Detroit. But
when?
Coming up, well, after.
No, you got to do it. We can vote today.
Hey, just so you know, we invited Governor Whitmer and Tudor Dixon to do a debate on Fox 2, and unfortunately, the two sides didn't meet up in order to make sure that they do it. Now, a debate would benefit who?
Well,
debate would benefit
that's some
Tudor
fear.
Dixon, right?
This is something I've heard out there, is that both sides are afraid of a debate because of what might be said that could get used in an ad against them.
Well,
and that's
go.
part of the culture that we're in today. Don't say anything that can be used against you. And that's, as a citizen, that's a tough place to be in.
But doesn't a negative ad reinforce sympathy to the person who they're attacking from the group that absolutely loves that person? I mean, if you're attacking Tudor Dixon and you're a Republican and you're a Tudor fan, you're probably going, man, stop this already.
I think it depends on the specifics of the ad, right? But that is certainly one potential outcome. I also think it could make people scratch their head and say, boy, is that really what she believes, or is that really what her issue position is? And make them take a second look at that candidate.
Interesting stuff. When you take a look at what's going to happen as you forecast out here, they're spending a lot of money. Both sides are. Where do you see this headed in the next 3 weeks, 6 weeks, and 8 weeks as we move forward?
Rinse, wash, repeat. I mean, it's the same thing. It's going to be over and over again. It's ad after ad after ad, focused on campaigns that are maybe within the margin of error of polling, right? Ones that are competitive, but more of the same.
Go ahead, Charlie.
I think the ads, I think you asked the question earlier, but where do they target? I think the bases, if you're a pro-Democrat, if you're going to vote for Gretchen, you're going to vote for, it doesn't matter. It's probably about 40% of the people. If you're Tudor Dixon, you vote maybe 40, maybe a little bit less. She hasn't run before. But you've got about an independent base of about 20-ish%. My numbers may be a little off, but not too much off. So a lot of these ads at this point will probably focus on those independent voters. And then again, what's your name ID? And the thing about it, if the candidate is a genuinely kind of a nice guy and you go negative on that person, it could have a negative effect. But you still have to target that independent vote and just sway them one way. A little catchword, something, and that will sway.
Something memorable. Does humor work?
Absolutely. And that's one of the best ways to take the edge off of a real nasty attack, is to try and poke fun at something. We've seen that work over the decades. That's been employed by political consultants.
But it better be good humor, though. Kevin Rinke ran an ad this last campaign where the zombies were voting or something.
Yep.
And I don't know. I talked to Kevin. I said, Kevin, I don't understand your ad. I don't know who you trying to get, dead people to vote? I don't get it. But it didn't work for him. So the ad's got to be real, as we all kind of agree on that.
Authenticity is key.
But I do like humor, though.
Well, humor is good, too. Everyone wants a good laugh, especially to cut through some of this vitriol that we're all experiencing, of course, on both sides. When we come back, we're going to have some final thoughts with our panel. Mudslinging works. The panel agrees on that. But final thoughts, we go right to Matt Friedman.
Nobody really likes advertising. They put up with advertising. So my advice to clients who complain to me every year about the political advertising and how it gets them down and they're sick of it, what I tell them is watch the news segments in between the advertising, and that'll help you make a decision.
That's very true. We have a reporting that every day we're doing more than 11 and a half hours of it on the air right here at Fox 2. David Dulio, final thoughts.
You know, a lot of Americans say that they don't like negative political advertising. And we can understand why. It attacks somebody, and it may take on their personality or what have you. But, and Matt knows this, right? If you look around at the other advertisements that are out there for laundry detergent, for wireless carriers, I saw one in the hallway before we came into the studio, for soup. they're negative too, right? Our wireless speeds are faster than the other guys, right? Our car is better than the other guys. That's negative advertising. It works.
It works. Charlie, we have about 10 seconds left.
Just go out and vote. The ads are not going away.
Make your decision.
And they're probably going to get worse. And this upcoming presidential election, look out. Just go out and vote.
Well, that does it for this edition of Let It Rip. We'll be back next week with more. Until then, have a great day.